Good morning and welcome to the webinar on the new LNG futures offering from EEX. So first off, we'll look at the agenda for the day. If during the webinar you have any questions, please post those in the chat, which you'll see on the, I believe, the right hand of the screen. So looking through what we're going to be talking about today. So first off, we'll introduce the new products, which are the JKM and TTF futures. I'll then hand over to my colleague, Richard Heath, who will then talk about how you can access the new contracts, the benefits of trading LNG at EEX, and then also we'll have a little look at development plans, so future product launches related to LNG at EEX. Then after that, we'll handle the Q&A at the end of the webinar. Next slide, please. So I won't dwell on this too much because I believe most of the people in the audience will be very familiar with the physical LNG market. But just to give you a bit of background as to why EEX is coming into the LNG market now. As we've seen over the last few years, LNG has become a very critical part of the European gas market, where it now counts for over 40% of European gas imports. Alongside that, we see that LNG remains as a vital energy import for the Asian market, with that region accounting for nearly 2/3 of global LNG imports. So because of this, this has a big impact on existing EEX customers, where EEX is very well established in European gas and power markets, as well as in the Japanese power market. So this inevitably led to customers asking for us to develop a complete LNG portfolio to help them manage the price risk alongside their existing power and gas business. Next slide, please. So we can see from the previous slide that, of course, Asia and Europe are the two key areas for this market. So because of that, what we've done is revamped our existing JKM futures contracts, where we've extended the expiry curve out to 6 years. And then alongside that, we're now launching a $1 per MMBTU version of our TTF contract, which will be cash settled. And the $1 TTF contract will go live on Monday alongside the JKM contract. And you can see with the web link on this slide that there is also a dedicated area where you can find out more information on these contracts on the EEX website. Next slide, please. So what I wanted to do is look in more detail at the JKM offering, and then after that we'll look at the $1 TTF in more detail as well. So you'll see as we run through the contract specification that the JKM is what you would expect as a standard setup for a futures contract of this type. We use the Platts daily assessment as the basis of the contract, and then we take a monthly average of the JKM, which then becomes the final settlement price for the contract. The contract size is, as you would expect, at 10,000 MMBTU. It's quoted in US dollars per MMBTU as well. So again, hopefully no surprises there. And as I mentioned previously, we've now extended the expiry curve out to 72 consecutive calendar months. The expiry of the contract is standard for the JKM offering. So the last trade registration day will be on the 15th day of the month prior to the expiry month. And that contract will be available for trade registration. Next slide, please. And with the $1 TTF, again, as you would expect, we've equalized that with JKM. So we use the Euro TTF contract as the basis for this contract, but we convert the settlement prices to US dollars per MMBTU. Again, the contract size is 10,000 MMBTU, and it's quoted in US dollars per MMBTU. And we've matched the expiry months with JKM so that both contracts have 72 consecutive expiry months. So neither of these contracts, like many of the other EEX offerings, are cascading. They are all standard monthly expiry contracts. And then with the final settlement of the dollar TTF contract, that will be 2 days before the first day of the expiry month. So that's a simultaneous expiry with the underlying Euro TTF futures contract. And then what we've done for the final settlement price, again, we've taken a standard approach here where we've actually created a specific benchmark. We have our own TTF front month index, where what we do is that when the front month rolls, when you get a new front month from the first day, we then collect the euro, the underlying euro settlement price, and we convert that to US dollars. And then we would take an average of that at the end of the month, so on the expiry day, and then that becomes the final settlement price. For the dollar TTF contract, this will be available both as trade registration and as an order book contract too. And so if we can have the next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the front month index. So we've actually compiled this as a specific benchmark that will be published in the EEX benchmark statement alongside the other indices that are published by the exchange. And as I was saying before, what we do is that we take an average of all the daily settlement prices in the front month for the underlying euro contract. And then as we go through the month, we add these up, and then on the last trading day, we take an average of all of those daily settlement prices where they are converted to dollars per MMBTU each day throughout the process. We use a company called New Change FX to give us the spot rate for the index. And you also find that this will be published on our data feed as well on the last expiry day. If I can have the next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk in a little bit more detail about New Change FX. So this is the company that we use not only to provide the spot rate, which we use for the dollar TTF index, but we also use them to provide additional forward FX rates so that every day we can then convert the underlying Euro TTF, not only the nearby price, but also the forward prices, to give us an indicative curve at the end of every day to help us calculate end of day settlement values. So what we found is that New Change has been able to provide us with interpolated forward prices that actually match the forward expiry dates of the underlying Euro TTF contract, which then enables us to get a very accurate indicative forward curve. We can then use that as the basis of the settlements, and then on top of that, take into account any orders or trades in the settlement window for the contract as well. So New Change are a benchmark administrator. They're currently FCA regulated and have the carve out with the EU, but moving forward, they will also get EU benchmark status so that they're able to continue to provide the service to EEX and their other customers within the EU. What we've also done, because in our research with the market, we found that people use a different range of benchmarks to price LNG derivatives, LNG cargoes. So we've been running a comparison, as you can see from the chart, of the New Change rates against some of the other leading benchmarks. And as you would expect, given the liquidity in the euro US dollar market, that we see an almost 100% correlation in pricing, which gives us a very accurate pricing basis for the index on our contract. So from my side, that introduces us to the contracts. As I was saying at the beginning of the presentation, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll address those at the end. But what I'll do now is hand over to my colleague Richard Heath, who will talk us through the features and benefits of trading on EEX. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks very much, Pete. So if we can move to the next slide, please. So for LNG and dollar TTF at EEX, these contracts are available to both our exchange members, existing exchange members, or anyone who's becoming a new exchange member. They're included in a variety of the EEX membership packages, so they're very, very easy to access. They're also available to non-members of the exchange, so anyone who's trading via their clearing member, clearing broker, and accessing EEX that way. So access to the contracts is very, very straightforward. If you don't have access today, or you think you don't have access, or you would like to have access, then you can do that by contacting your usual key account manager, or you can contact either Peter or myself, and we can make sure that someone will help you through that process. In terms of the specifics of the contract, the fees for this contract are charged in US dollars. I think we saw them in the contract specifications. The combined clearing and trading fee for the JKM contract is $10 a lot, and it's also the same for the dollar TTF. There are fee incentives available for both those contracts, and I'll provide a little bit of detail on those in a moment. In terms of margining, this is the standard protocol for US dollar contracts at EEX and ECC. Initial margins are charged in either euro or US dollar, depending on the choice of the member, and variation margins in US dollar. When we talk about margins, there are significant margin offsets available between these contracts, both the JKM LNG and the dollar TTF, and the existing EEX suite of power and gas contracts. I picked out just some examples. So when we look at JKM versus the existing gas hub contracts, we see margin offsets of up to 70%. And when we look at JKM versus power, offsets of up to 50%. For the dollar TTF, the gas hub offsets are extremely high, up to 90% at the moment, and also very, very high on some of our existing power contracts, where we can see offsets of up to 80%. Now, these are just a few examples. If you want specific details on the margin offsets that are available between the different contracts, then ECC publish that information daily on their website in their intercommodity spreads file, and you can get that from there and then download it and look at exactly the specific contract combinations that you want to see and the expiries, and understand exactly what the margin offsets will be for the trading that you're doing. When it comes to trading, JKM and dollar TTF are both available for trade registration. You can access this through broker members of EEX, and the vast majority of our broker members are set up and ready to go and help you on these contracts. And trade registration fully available through both Trayport and also through our own trade registration portal, EEX Touchpoint. As Peter mentioned as well, excuse me, as Peter mentioned, you can get information on the contracts from our market data services around the index and daily pricing of these. If we can move to the next slide, please. So I mentioned a little bit the fee incentives for the dollar TTF and JKM LNG contracts. So both of these contracts are included in our universal fee rebate program, and that means that if you're already trading with us or you're trading multiple commodities with us, then any additional volumes that you do in JKM or dollar TTF will be added to your current trading volumes, and therefore you may increase the overall rebate you receive on all of that business. So you can see the rebate tiers there. Within the rebate scheme, because the vast majority of what we do uses terawatt hours as units, you can see that that's how the rebate scheme is set up. we've done the conversion there for you. 340 lots of JKM or dollar TTF will equal 1 terawatt hour. So if your normal trading takes you at or close to one of these thresholds, and you add parts or all of your LNG business with us, then that could push you over one of these thresholds quite easily, and increase the discounts that you're seeing. Let's move to the next slide, please. So Peter mentioned as well a little bit about the product roadmap, and we wanted to say that, you know, this first contract launch in the LNG area is not the end of the development that we'll do here. We see LNG as you know, a critical market to both our established customer bases in Europe and Asia, and also for newer customers and new market areas that we're going into. So it's an area that we will continue to develop over time. We're looking at 3 major areas where we'll see development. And the first one of these is LNG freight futures. At EEX, we have an established freight business. Talking to many of the LNG traders that we've had discussions with in the build up to this launch, many people have highlighted that freight is a critical area for LNG, and this is something that we should look at. Now, we know that there is a little bit of difficulty generating liquidity in the contracts that exist today in this part of the market, but we are sure that with our expertise in freight and our established business in gas and power, and now adding this block for LNG and dollar TTF, that we can set those contracts up in a way where we can bring them to market to add value and increase the risk management and trading options for our customers. We'll also continue to look at the possibility for DES LNG futures. Obviously, this has been an area of debate over the last few years, where we saw, you know, with extremely high European gas prices, the correlation between DES LNG and TTF and other gas hubs really kind of breaking apart. With prices returning to more normal levels now, those concerns seem to have gone away, but this is an area that we'll continue to look at. And we think with the overall evolution of the LNG market and more LNG being priced as LNG rather than as a proxy to another benchmark, this is something that we could bring in the future. So that's an area that we'll keep looking at. Additionally, we'll continue to develop other gas hubs in dollars per MMBTU. Obviously, we have a very, very well established European gas business, and many of our customers would like to see the hedging and trading options that we're providing with the dollar TTF extended to the other hubs that we have as well. So that's an area that we'll look at too. Okay, next slide, please. So we're coming to the end of the presentation. I can see that we have some questions, so we'll get to those in a minute. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of leave you with some key takeaways. You know, what is it that we want you to think of after this webinar? And those are, you know, that the growth in global LNG trading really is impacting EEX's customer bases, both in gas and in power. It's critical to our European business and our Asian business. And that's an area that we're growing very, very strongly in. So this is something that's going to continue to be in focus for us as an exchange. If it's important to the markets that we service, then it's important to us. So we're committed to developing this market with you. Our products, the JKM LNG and the dollar TTF, are launching on Monday. So we're very excited about that. Make sure that date is in your diary. We're ready to go. A great many of our existing customers are ready to trade these contracts, so we're expecting a good start from next week. You will benefit from well, a range of benefits really by trading these contracts at EEX. Obviously, we talked about the fee incentives, but also the margin offsets, and I think they're, you know, they can be very, very significant. Obviously, there's a very high correlation between these contracts and the gas markets, but we also see high correlations and therefore good margin offsets in our power markets as well. So if you have a lot of your portfolio business at EEX, then you could really realize some significant capital efficiency by bringing part of your LNG business over to us as well, and putting that as part of the whole pot that you have with us. So that's an area that again, from the feedback that we have, is very important to many of our customers. And then finally, we remain committed to the development of this area. As I say, our plans don't stop with the launch on Monday. We will look to add freight futures, further dollar gas hubs, and also potentially there's LNG prices, depending on feedback, obviously from our market participants, from the contracts that you want, where you see the risks, where you need the new services, that's where we'll add them. But we are committed to doing that, and we should expect to see new contract launches in this space quite soon. Okay, well, that is it, I think, for the slides from Peter and myself. I think if we go to the next slide, then we have our contact details on there. So they have our contact details there, both on the business development side and also on the sales and account management side. And I think we're ready to take some questions, Ashan.
Great, thank you so much, Rich and Pete. So our first question is, can we offset our margin between Japan Power and JKM TTF?
So I can take that one as I'm already on screen. So there are margin offsets available between a great many contracts. I hadn't looked at that one before the presentation, but we can have a look in the ECC margin offset file and see the offsets between all of the different contracts cleared at ECC and exactly what those are. What I would say as well is those offsets, they're published daily by ECC. They do change over time depending on the price correlation between the commodities. So that means that they do fluctuate. And with the kind of developments in the market, we expect to see some of those increase over time as well. So sorry, I don't have the exact number on that for you right now, but as I say, all of the offsets are available in that file, the link for which is on the presentation.
Thank you. The next question is asking if we have any news on margin offsets on dollar TTF versus JKM contracts.
Popular area, the margin offsets. So those ones we did have say yes, and I think I said in the slides there's significant offsets between JKM and dollar TTF, and also our euro denominated gas contracts as well, up to I think it was 70 or even slightly more at the moment. But as I say, those offsets do change, so please do keep an eye on them.
Great, thank you. We've had a follow-up to the first question. The person has highlighted that they meant Japan Power in yen, JKM in dollar, and how can this be offset?
So the way that the margin offsets work are based on the correlation between the price series of the different contracts. So obviously we have various different currencies across our contracts, and most of them are denominated in euro, but we do of course have Japanese power and yen. We have a number of US dollar denominated contracts as well, and the difference in the currencies will be part of the kind of risk analysis that the clearinghouse does when they look at the historical time series. So the fact that two contracts are in different currencies doesn't mean that we can't have an offset between them.
Great, thank you. Our last question is, do you have plans to trade TTF futures in Asian morning time?
I think with that one, with this particular one, we already have a system in place for Japanese power, which enables people to enter trades out of hours. And in fact, we also have a function in freight as well, which enables people to register trades outside of the clearinghouse opening hours. So with the availability of JKM and TTF in Touchpoint, that would then enable you to enter trades which would then be cleared during ECC clearing hours.
Thank you so much. That is the last of all of our questions. So back over to you, Pete.
Okay, thanks very much, Ashant. So that's everything for today. As Rich said at the end of the presentation, you can see our contact details, myself, Richard, Erica, and then Jamal from sales and account management as well. So please do feel free to get in touch with any of us, or if you have an existing account manager, please reach out to them as well. We're on hand to answer questions, to point you in the right direction, to find further details on the contracts, to navigate the margin offset files, or whatever information that you need. And again, as Rich said, we're looking forward to Monday. We go live on Monday with the JKM and the dollar TTF futures. We will continue to be out there talking to people, engaging with customers. We have a series of customer events that many of you will be aware of in Europe, in Asia. Some of those are multi-asset, some of those are LNG specific. But that will give you an opportunity to meet us, to ask more questions in person, and we look forward to working with you to develop these markets alongside our existing power and gas franchise, and to make sure that LNG is a big part of the EEX product portfolio. So thanks very much for your time today, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.